Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov, and we're here with the weekly amazing story. And this week we didn't have to look too hard in order to find miracle stories of Mashiach and Geula. There is Hashem. Pretty much, Hashem is giving us the foretaste of the Geula of Mashiach and of the the final revelation of the redemption here and now. And as we know, things have come slowly. Unfortunately, they're coming just slowly, but surely to a turnabout. And we see that Hashem is revealing for us, just like in the story of the Megillah. Hashem is revealing for us the great wonders that He has set within, in order to go into later on give us the option, the ability, and the mitzvah to go into to bring to the eyes and the ears of all the creation the miracles that Hashem is doing for us. Before we start the story, I mean the most recent, perhaps we can call it a joke, but the most recent joke that people are telling about here in Israel, all over the world, is that before Nasrallah, Yamach Shemo, was killed, so he went to a person that gazes in the stars in order to know what's going to be the future. And he went to this to this individual, and he asked, and the stargazer looked up in the heavens, and he looked back at Nasrallah, and he said, "Listen, I can tell you what's going to be in the future, but I don't know if you're going to like it that much." So he says, "No, please, you must tell me." So he says, "Fine, I'll tell you. You're going to be killed." He says, "What? I'm going to die?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "You got to tell me when. When is it going to be?" He has to prepare himself. So he says, "It's going to be on a holiday of the Jews." A holiday of the Jews? Come on, you got to be more accurate about this. What holiday are we talking? So the stargazer looks a very stern look at Nasrallah, and he says, "Mr. Nasrallah, it doesn't make a difference what holiday of the Jews. The day that you die is going to be an immense holiday for all the Jews all over the world." King David the Melech, comes and tells us in Tehillim, "B'nefol oivecha al tismach," that when an enemy of the Jewish nation falls, we should not celebrate. So how are we going? And we know there's a very direct instruction from the Rebbe to go out and to not be ashamed, not be embarrassed, to go out and to dance and sing in the streets. How can this be? It seems to be a grave dichotomy. How can we live in these two opposites? Either we're celebrating or we're not. And when we bring about the truth, so we see that we're not celebrating because of the fact that there's an evil person, Rahman Litzlan, that wanted to do what he wanted to do to the Jewish nation, and he has been killed. This is not the issue. The issue at hand, and this is the instruction that the Rebbe gives for every single individual. By the way, it's not only for the Jewish nation. Someone showed me a clip from today. There are Lebanese in Toronto, Canada, that are singing and dancing in the city square, giving out free food. I doubt very much whether it's kosher, but giving out free food for the people, showing Lebanese flag, and a big posters, big signs saying, "Thank you, Israel, for ridding us of Nasrallah." So we're talking about people that are celebrating in the streets, people that are the Gentiles of the Umay Sa'elam, the nations of the world. How much more so the Jewish nation should be celebrating. But what are we celebrating? We're celebrating the miracles and the wonders that Hashem has done and is doing and will be further doing for us on our behalf in this situation. The end of this year, Tafshin Pei Dalid, Tehishnas Nifloes Degulois, and the beginning of the upcoming year, Tafshin Nun Hey, Tehishnas Hakol Nifloes. It'll be a year that that everything will be wondrous. And there are many other acronyms that have been found, but we'll keep it short with this acronym. And the point of the matter is that what we are seeing now is remarkable, unbelievable things that Hashem, in all the Torah, we see that there's one book that Hashem's name is not mentioned in, and this is the book of the Megillas Esther, the scroll of Esther. And the reason is because Hashem wants that we will be able to go into bring the wondrous and greatness, the publicizing and the advertising of Hashem on a natural basis, within the channels of nature. And just to give one or two examples, right? Because this is part and parcel of the stories, the miracle stories of here and now. The first example, and this was told to me literally tonight, 30 years ago, apparently, give or take a few years, there were elections, and in these elections, they wanted to see who was going to be voted in as the head of the Hezbollah. Now, there was another individual. I can't recall his name accurately. He's not stationed in Lebanon anymore. He's in Saudi Arabia today. But this individual, he was literally competing with Nasrallah, and at the end, they ran him out of Lebanon because he made a visit. He made a visit to the death camps in Poland in order to pay respect to the Jewish nation. And the Muslims there said, "What? You dared to go and to do such a thing, and you go and you publicize such a thing, that you have compassion for the Jews? You're out." And he had to not only did he lose the elections, but he had to flee for his life. And today he's found in, like we said before, in Saudi Arabia. What is this Muslim Arab? What is he saying? What is he publicizing? What is he talking about? He says the following. He says that there is a great joy that Nasrallah was killed, because he was inducing the entire Muslim public that there is a spiritual and religious responsibility and obligation to go and to follow up on all the instructions that are given from Iran. Yamach Shema. And these things they deemed as holy words directly from the great prophet. And he comes and he says he called the bluff. He calls the bluff, and he says he's being interviewed by an Arab interviewer, and he says to her, the fact of the matter is that the Iranians call themselves the human beings, and all the other people, the proxies as they're called today, whether it's Hezbollah or whether it's Hamas, they call them not only proxies, but they call them servants. Servants that serve. And the human beings are only the Iranians. And the fact of the matter is that they use us. He's saying this in the interview. They use us just as a person would use an elastic glove. That the moment that the glove has served its purpose, the glove is removed and thrown away. In other words, they have no respect, no honor whatsoever for the other Muslims that are in Lebanon, the Hezbollah, the Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, or those that are serving them in Iraq. And this is the head Arab that was going to be the head of the Hezbollah 30 years ago. He's saying these words here and now today. The second thing that was uncovered, and this is from one of the heads of the Hezbollah that mentioned it literally in these days. He said that years ago they went and they put together an intelligence agency. And this intelligence agency was in order to go and to find how they were going to be able to conquer, God forbid, the land of Israel, the Jewish nation. And then he said the most remarkable, amazing, and shocking words. He said, and he admitted to this. I don't know if it's true, but this is what he said. He said, unfortunately, we weren't able to uncover the fact that the head of this intelligence agency that we put together, he's talking about the Hezbollah, was a Mossad agent. This is going pretty far. They put together an intelligence agency, and the intelligence agent, at the head of the intelligence agency, who stands? A Mossad agent. One of the representatives of the Israeli intelligence. These are miracles that we cannot even fathom. We can't understand. How is this possible? How can this be? Last but not least, they're coming up with arguments in Lebanon. In Lebanon, they're coming up with arguments about the burial of this Nasrallah. And the people of Lebanon say they don't want Nasrallah to be buried in Lebanon. They say, he worked for the Iranians. Let them take his body. Let them bury him by them. He's one of their holy men. Let them take care of his burial. We don't want him to be buried in Lebanon. So someone asked me, Rabbi, going back in history, after Haman HaRasha and his sons were hung, where did they bury them? Do we know today where their burial place is? I said I have no idea. This detail isn't mentioned in the Megillah. It's not mentioned in the Scroll of Esther, and I don't think it should be either. But nevertheless, these are details that are very, very accurate, one following the other, of how we are able to see the miracles, the wonders that Hashem is doing for us here and now at the end of this year, which was a year that began with the most atrocious and most unbelievable massacre in the history of the Jewish nation here in Israel. And we know that a year that begins Rash, a year that begins in a manner of poverty, brings on a new year that begins with Ashirus. It begins with wealth. And when we're talking about poverty and wealth, it's talking about physical poverty and wealth. It's talking about spiritual poverty and wealth. It's talking about all the factors and all the faculties of the creation, right? That when we end a year that was downhill, the Torah tells us that the next year, the upcoming year, is a year that we're going to be going and ascending upwards. And Bezrat Hashem, with Hashem's help, this should be the situation. And not only with the beginning of the new year, we're already in the eve of the new year, in the days of Slichus, the days that we already our Achenu Asfaradim, our Sephardic brethren, have already started from the beginning of the month of Elul. They've been saying Slichus. And there was an incredible Slichus that was said today, and Motzei Shabbos, at the Kotel. If anyone wants, they can go online and see it. And there's an even greater Slichus that has been organized for tomorrow morning at the Kotel. And this is another one, and with this we'll end our Mashiach and Geula amazing stories of actuality. The individual that has taken upon himself to go and to publicize and to advertise this big Jewish get-together of slichus tomorrow at the Kotel is none other than the son of one of the heads of the Hamas, who has totally turned around. He's an Arab, and he was a son of one of the heads of the Hamas. And he is the one that is actually, I think his family name is Haddad, if I'm not mistaken, Yusuf Haddad. He has been taking upon himself to go and to publicize the benefit of the Jewish nation and the goodness of the Jewish nation throughout this past year, from the beginning of the October War last year, which Rahman Litzlan, we're coming to the culmination of the October 7th in a few days. He, the son of the head of the Hamas, is going and publicizing and advocating for the Jewish nation. We never saw such a turnabout in the Jewish nation. Perhaps at Yetzias Mitzrayim, when the Jews left Egypt. So it says that they're lemakem Mitzrayim bivchoreim, that Egypt was smitten with their own firstborn. But that was already the Shabbos HaGodol, and it was the civil war that broke out within the Egyptian empire between the Bechorot, the firstborn, that were told that they're going to die with makas bechoros, with the smiting of the firstborn, and the people in the government that at their helm, at their head, was Paro himself, Harosha, that didn't want to let the Jews go. So here we see how everything is turning about. Yehi Rotzain, that we should see the total turnabout. And this is something that is a continuation from the story of Purim, because we're told, the Gemara tells us, the Talmud says, that the reason that when we come to Purim, as opposed to Hanukkah, when we had the great victory over the Greeks in the holiday of Hanukkah, so every day of Hanukkah we say Hallel, we say the prayer of praise, and we laud Hashem in the prayer of Hallel. On Purim we don't say Hallel. Was there a greater miraculous feat that we experienced in history that Haman HaRasha wanted to annihilate the entire Jewish nation in one day, men, women, and children, and everything was turned about, and Haman HaRasha and his sons were hung, and the Jews were given the rulership in the kingdom of Achashverosh? The Talmud comes and says this is exactly the reason that we don't say Hallel. The Jews were given the rulership, but it was in the empire under the rulership of Achashverosh. And since this is the fact, the Talmud says, Anan akate avdei d'Achashverosh anan. We are still, sort of speak, under the rulership, we are the servants of Achashverosh, the king of Iran. He was the king of Persia then. And apparently the same frame of mind has been passed on throughout the history, throughout the generations, to the extent that the Hayatollah, the head honcho of Iran, he thinks that everyone has to be under his rulership. This is exactly where everything gets turned around. And this last Purim that we are experiencing, this is going to be under the final rulership of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, with the Geula Hashlema V'Amitis, the true and the complete redemption, and with mitoch simcha v'tuv levav, in a manner of happiness and joy of the heart, with the alleviation of the mind and heart, that we should be able to be in a tranquil state of mind. And the main thing is that it should be teichef umiyad mamash mamash mamash. It should be immediately in actuality now. Yechi Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach Chai V'Kayom Le'olam Voed. Amen.